On TLC's My 600-Pound Life, many people struggling with obesity are given the help they need through an intense diet and surgery from the one and only Dr. Now. However, there are circumstances where contestants don't even bother to try and lose weight for whatever reason. Today, we are going to take a look at some of my 600-Pound Life guests who didn't even bother. Be sure to watch this entire video, as you won't believe these stories. Also, leave a like and subscribe to the channel to never miss a single upload. That being said, let's get right into the list. Penny Sager. Having the courage to work with Dr. Now and appear on My 600-Pound Life is not an easy one, as any of the show's stars would tell you. And unfortunately, for some of the patients, they're just not ready, willing, or able to conquer their addiction to food. Well, this is exactly the case with Penny Sager, who made her appearance on the show during Season 2. At first, there was a ray of hope, as she was able to lose 40 pounds on a controlled diet, so Dr. Now approved her for a weight loss surgery. However, during a follow-up episode, it was revealed that after Sager's gastric bypass, instead of losing weight, she gained 5 pounds. Clearly, she was having food brought to her, under the radar. Sager eventually left Houston and moved back home to Maryland, quitting the program altogether against Dr. Now's medical advice. She even stated in her follow-up episode that she knows her addiction is going to eventually end her life, but she doesn't know when. I mean, when you're in that mindset, you might need a little more than just Dr. Now. Schnee Murray. When viewers first met Schnee Murray on My 600-Pound Life, she was deeply sad about suffering through 2 miscarriages, and her story was definitely one that had people feeling bad for her. That experience can be extremely traumatic to not just the person who endures one, but her partner as well. Like many people on the show, Schnee started to gain drastic amounts of weight after she was sexually abused by her cousin at a young age. She turned to food as a way of comfort during these dark times. But there was hope, as Murray went to Dr. Now to help her get both her life and her weight back under control. But alas, she was unwilling and unable to stop compulsively overeating. And as you all can guess, this didn't turn out too well. Despite her claims of gaining water weight, something Dr. Now pointed out was clearly not the case, Murray was never approved for weight loss surgery. Schnee continued to go against what Dr. Now said, eating countless foods and junk as she continued to gain weight. Well, she eventually ended up dropping out of the show and leaving Dr. Now altogether. James King. James King was one of the biggest people to ever appear in My 600-Pound Life. When he appeared on the show, he weighed in at over 800 pounds and could barely even leave his bed in the morning. He also had a severe case of cellulitis, a painful skin infection. Additionally, King's family had made some huge sacrifices for him, including his daughter dropping out of school to care for him, and his father refinancing his home to get him to Houston. Well, when he got to Houston, King was not happy at all, and he hadn't lost the weight Dr. Now wanted him to either. He was able to drop a few pounds on his appearance during the show, but viewers later found out instead he gained enough to weigh in at 840 pounds. Eventually, Dr. Now told him to leave if he wasn't willing to adhere to the program. Well, in his follow-up episode, things had not improved. Dr. Now actually called Adult Protective Services on King's girlfriend when he discovered King's organs were failing, and she was bringing him food while in the hospital. Just recently, about a month ago, James King unfortunately passed away, and while an exact cause of death wasn't revealed, King had a history of health issues which may have contributed to his passing, and we can surely say that King's weight gains were not helpful in his case at all. The Asante brothers. If you are a big fan of My 600-Pound Life, you know that the Asante brothers are 2 of the most popular contestants on the show. The Asante brothers are Steven and Justin. Steven is the most controversial star on My 600-Pound Life. They were caught cheating on Dr. Now's diet advice, and even threw tantrums on the show. To be fair, most of the really bad behavior was courtesy of Steven, but poor Justin got lumped in with his brother more often than not. To say the least, these 2 were absolutely insane. Dr. Now even had to cut Steven off from the weight loss program and send him straight to drug rehab, as well as give him a handful of talking tos as though Steven were Dr. Now's own son. On the other hand, Justin was definitely not as bad in terms of his appearance on the show. Nobody could stand his older brother Steven on the show, and it turns out Justin couldn't either. He explained how he was a victim of Steven's bullying too. According to a Facebook post from May 2018, Stephen Asante is married to a woman named Stephanie. He keeps things fairly private, but her page is full of swooning declarations of love. She also told Starcasm her husband is nothing like he was perceived on the TV show at all. He's a gentleman and a fantastic lover and lover of life in general. For Justin, it seems he is living a fine life on his own, glad to be away from his crazy brother Stephen. Lisa Fleming. Lisa Fleming had one of the grossest, most interesting stories of my 600-pound life to this date. During Lisa Fleming's episode, her daughter discovered that there were literal maggots living in the folds of her skin. Lisa was weighing in at over 700 pounds at the time and could barely even move around. It seemed like the fact that maggots were living in her skin would be the wake-up call that got Fleming motivated enough to stick to the diet that Dr. Now had prescribed her. However, things just really did not go too well for Lisa. Although Fleming did lose some weight while under supervision, she gained the weight again once she was back at home. As the show continued on, Lisa's tactics of cheating on the diet and manipulation became apparent to the show's hosts, Dr. Now, and even the audience watching by the end of her episode. Dr. Now was clearly frustrated with Fleming's unwillingness to change and dismissed her from his program. Not a year after Fleming appeared on My 600-Pound Life, she passed away at her home at age 50. Definitely a sad ending, but we really hate to see people cheating on Dr. Now's advice because the consequences are pretty severe and probably had a factor in her passing away. Mercedes Cephas. Of all the stars of My 600-Pound Life, Mercedes Cephas' story is among the most heartbreaking. At just 11 years of age, Mercedes fell into a deep hole when her father started sexually abusing her. By the time she was 15 years old, she was up to 300 pounds and using food to help her deal with the trauma of her assaults. Obviously, this had a huge impact on her life. She was eager to lose some weight, but I guess her efforts and motivation just were not enough. When confronted about her eating habits by Dr. Now, Cephas insisted that she wasn't overeating. She said she just wasn't eating the right foods, even at 773 pounds. Well, Mercedes, you are either eating food with ridiculous amounts of fat and calories, or you are overeating. Which one is it? Well, it turns out she was overeating, but didn't want to admit to it. When she finally did move to Houston months later, she had only dropped just under 50 pounds. Not only was she lying about her eating habits, but she also ended up gaining weight despite Dr. Now's diet by the end of her episode. After she had only lost around 80 pounds altogether, Dr. Now was adamant that she be admitted into the hospital, giving her 3 days to decide. At the end of the day, Mercedes clearly wasn't trying and wanted an easy way out. Angela Gutierrez. When Angela was first introduced to My 600-Pound Life, it was apparent that she had been through a lot, having lost custody of her children due to child endangerment and attempting to take her own life. Gutierrez started gaining weight from overeating to attempt to cope with her negative feelings. By the time she made the journey to Dr. Now with her ex-boyfriend, she weighed in at 608 pounds. However, what is very interesting about this case is that Angela had already undergone weight loss surgery, meaning she had an unsuccessful surgery, or she simply didn't try, and gained all her weight back. But when Dr. Now charged her to lose weight by following his diet plan, Gutierrez completely failed, and didn't even bother to follow Dr. Now's advice or diet routine. So I think we can guess that she failed her first surgery, and was coming back for another shot. But this time, I think she should have been a bit more prepared and motivated, because it seems she fell back into the same loophole as the last time. She started missing appointments, eventually dropping out of the program altogether, and returned to her home in Ohio. But she still had one more check-in with Dr. Now, which she did via video chat. In it, she told him that she had lost 120 pounds, to which he responded that she's delusional. That's never a good sign. Cynthia Wells. When Cynthia arrived on the show, it was evident that she was very lonely. But a single mom of 5 children, she also had a ton of responsibility, something that was becoming more difficult because of her weight. At 610 pounds, Wells was becoming less motivated to leave the house and more exhausted when she had to move. So Dr. Now put her on a diet plan, and things got started. However, when it came to following Dr. Now's instructions, Cynthia was one of the worst to do so. She merely wanted to do it all by herself. She went on and became one of the most stubborn stars of My 600-Pound Life during her time on the show. At one point, she even called Dr. Now's program bullcrap and returned home to Oklahoma City. By the end of her episode, Wells' weight loss had stalled, and she was deep in denial about her emotional eating habits. It's one thing to not want to follow the diet Dr. Now has set out for contestants, but the fact that she called him out and labeled his program as bullcrap shows how full of herself she was.